Great defeaters, new and old, welcome back to another, on this occasion, I'll say very special episode of The Breakdown with your host, BaseDaKID, Tony, the Pugilist Boy. We are children of the game. Tony, I'm going to let you start off, man. How is things?
Things are good, my friend. Things are good. We are in the month of July. You know what that means? I'm very happy. I have 3 weeks of school left. And on the day that we pack up school, my bags are being packed and I am jetting off, my friend. So I am very, very happy right now. I'm feeling good. It's been a good weekend. Some decent boxing to watch. A definite contender for KO of the year. In amongst it, so we do like a nice KO every now and again. So overall, I'm good. How are you, my brother?
Yeah, can't complain. Was on a little mini. I won't call it a vacation. I was away. Let's put it that way. But I'm back now. Very quick one. Doing what needed to be done, as people will no doubt remember from last week. What date do you finish school?
I believe it's the 19th.
Okay. And what you're saying, you're gone from the 19th, yeah? When you coming back?
No. We leave on the Tuesday, the 25th.
Okay. Well, that means what? Got you for another couple of weeks. I guess we'll have to
Well,
make.
I got some news for you. I'm moving to the Blue Borough.
Okay, couldn't stay away now.
I've moved from Northwest London, my home and my spiritual base, down to Southwest, and now I'm moving over to Southeast.
You know where your bread's buttered, so.
You know what it is? It's just necessity. Sometimes you just gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah, it's alright. It's no shame, you know. Want to taste the good life. I know Northwest ain't really it, so you move to where you need to. I get it. Makes sense.
So
Right,
let's get in amongst, shall we?
before we do all of that, obviously, just to let everyone know, like a lot of y'all know why you here. Outside of obviously listening to the great breakdowns. So normal rules when guests are on are in effect. Like we will do the roll call right now. But after that, pretty much when guests arrive, like neither of us will be checking the chat for any questions or things of that nature. The only way you're gonna grab our attention is if we see one of those one of the colored stickers flash up. So whether that's a member, whether that's a super chat, that's the only way our eyes will be directed to that screen, because we will be focused on the guest and providing our full attention to them. So you guys know what if you want to have those questions or everything, you know what you need to do. So yeah, we won't say much more about that. Yeah, Tony, but greet whoever's down here at the moment.
Absolutely. So first in the house was Mulla. Big up to you, my friend. Never one of the Southeast Massive. Jam Down 187, Jonah 31, Michael Januario, Danny from Fight Fan TV. Big up to my guy at North London Massive, North Bank Bren. I know you're a happy man today. 2 big signings for our club. Bless up. G-Chain, another one of the North London Red Massive. Big up to yourself, sir. Dan the Man's 15, Hot Pies, Mulla. I think I've already mentioned you, but I am going to keep my top on today. Don't worry about that, brother. And Jam Down, yes, I will be moving to the Blue Borough. House prices are a madness, but you know, man's got to do what man's got to do.
Like I said, Jam Dan, he knows where his bread's buttered. It's all good. He knows where he's wanted, or at least where he can live that good life. So
just closer for some sparring for you, mate. That's all you got to think about, yeah?
All right, say nothing. Whenever you're ready. All right, so I think we're gonna do the action first, and we're gonna leave everything else to the end. I'm just in the background, just waiting on a certain couple confirmations. So yeah, I'm gonna let you start off, Tony.
Okay.
You can go to wherever you want, and I will be doing this in the meantime.
Okay, so we will start as we normally do with a big one. We'll work in chronological order and then we'll work our way back to another big one at the end. So we're going to do this pretty niftily today because we do want to give our attention to our guest. So we're going to start off with the big fight that happened here in the UK, which was a unification fight. Clarissa Shields. Savannah Marshall challenging Franchon Cruz Dezern for her super middleweight undisputed belts, and this took place on Boxer. It was I've got no video, but I've got plenty of pictures. It was an interesting fight. I kind of knew from the get-go I had put my money on Marshall winning this because I just felt she was a better boxer. She also boxes very much at distance. She knows how to utilize her frame, her long frame. We look at the previous fight against Clarissa. Clarissa had to use very slick footwork to get in and to operate inside of Savannah's long levers. But I knew that Franchon just didn't have that in her. I knew she would bull rush her. I knew she would try to rough her up. But I kind of figured that ultimately this would be a battle of a brutish slugger against a seasoned boxer in Savannah Marshall. And she was able to, despite taking, the best of what Franchon could do, and Franchon being what Franchon is, a tough, hard, battling professional. At the end of the day, the slicker boxing and the more effective punching was always coming from Savannah Marshall. This to me was a very easy fight to score. Savannah was able to dominate most rounds with her boxing, although there were times when Franchon did cause her some difficulty just because of her bull rush tactics. But essentially, she was able always at the end of each round to go back, reset from, words from her corner and come back out and reestablish her punch attack in a way that basically kept Franchon away, using good long levers that she's got. The long uppercuts, the overhand right seemed to find a regular home. She also mixed up her punch variety by attacking both body and head. Whereas Franchon, whenever she got into close range, she was getting tied up by Savannah in a decent way, which meant that she wasn't as effective with her inside attacks in the same way that Clarissa was able to do so in that previous fight. So that was my take on the fight. What say you, sir?
Okay, so essentially the way I look at this fight, I kind of had it as a case of whoever got their tactics right was gonna win ultimately, because it was never gonna make for the most aesthetically pleasing fight, just being at the fact that Franchon, her sort of her best tactics, even though she's got a decent enough amateur style, when you fight the person with the longer levers, like it's a lot easier to try and sort of bob and weave to get on the inside of that person and get your work off that way. So in regards to it looked as if a lot of the time Cruz, I feel that Cruz Dezern's feet slowed down a little bit from her last fight. I think she's the type of person that needs to stay active, even though her game plan seems rather crude and rudimentary. Like, she's got to remain active to keep up the level of athleticism, because she's naturally bigger. That she needs to sort of stay more well oiled. Now, I remember she even said that she had to lose quite a bit of weight for this fight. So I'm wondering if part of that obviously contributed to maybe some of the sluggish nature that she did exhibit throughout parts of the fight. But in terms of energy, she kind of reminds me a little bit of Derek Chisora, in the sense that you will go through a round, and then you'll see her almost huffing and puffing in the corner. Almost looks like she's blowing a lung, but then in the very next round, she comes out and she's good for the whole amount of action that she's got again. So she's got pretty good powers of recovery in terms of how she executes. Now, with regards to that, I feel as if Savannah was giving up her natural advantages in this fight quite a bit, but I also feel like part of that was because she didn't trust herself to be able to stick Cruz de Zone behind a very solid jab. I think she felt that if she tried to stay long and keep the jab extended, it would give Cruz de Zone a much easier opportunity to actually get around it and then throw that overhand right, which obviously you don't want to really get caught with flush, which I think is why Savannah was more sort of using lateral movement and sort of using sort of the hinge of her frame, so up and down, side to side, and just rotating her upper torso. Part of that is obviously what gave Cruz de Zone the chances to get on the inside, and they were both sort of grappling in there. But you can tell that Cruz de Zone is the naturally bigger, stronger, like thicker set woman, whereas Savannah is a lot more sort of wiry, more rangy, and obviously is much better from the outside. So that's one of the reasons why the fight ended up being as close as it was. I know some people tried to say it was like a 9-1 Savannah Marshall or like 9-1 and 1 even. No, it was really 8-1 and 1 even. So, but it was a close fight based on, if you just look at punch output, where the punches are landing, whether they're hard or not, like there was a lot of scoring shots there. And I definitely had Savannah Marshall winning the fight. I had it 94-96 to her. So the 95-95 card wasn't, like, to me, horrendous, but I did struggle to see where they gave that fifth round to Franchon Cruz, and I haven't seen the scorecards to find out what rounds they gave her. But for me, the rounds that I felt that she won, when I say clearly, I don't mean like, oh, it was a whitewash, but where, to me, it was kind of conclusive. That was her round, in my opinion, was rounds 1, 3, 7, and 10. Um, and the other 6 I felt was all Savannah. But within that, there was 2 other rounds where I was almost ready to give them to Franchon until Savannah basically just sort of took them right at the last moment with some eye-catching shots. Because she did that quite a lot of the rounds. There was nip and tuck, and Cruz de Zone was doing a lot of decent work, but nothing was like really heavy landing. And then all of a sudden, Savannah would just come out with something eye-catching, and that was just enough to sort of steal it, because there was nip and tuck in between the rounds, and there wasn't too much separating them at that time. So yeah, that's kind of my opinion on it. It was to me, the right person did win the fight. It was a lot closer than the other 2 scorecards had it. The 93-97 one I could kind of get with, but the 99-92 one I felt was a little disrespectful. But Savannah was the home fighter, even though she wasn't the champion. So I was expecting her to get favorable, sort of favorable scoring if rounds were either close or if she did anything that sort of exhibited a bit more of a dominant or a dominance at any one point in the round. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that one personally. Oh wait, has Tony disappeared on me? For everyone who's watching, just so you know, my screen, like I can only see myself moving on the screen. Tony's frozen for me, but I know like on the broadcast he's okay. So maybe what I might have to do is I might have to use my phone to see how his broadcast is actually looking in between takes. So if there is any pauses at times, apologies. Like I literally can't see when someone else is ready to go. So I'm kind of going off of everything I hear at the minute. So apologies if there is any disjointedness between the two of us.
So at the moment, your screen is perfectly fine. There's no buffering of any sort. Sound is perfect. In relation to your comment about the scoring, I was just about to comment. I've got the scoring of the judges in front of me. The only rounds that were unanimous across all 3 judges were to Savannah for round 4, round 5, round 8, and that was it. None of the rounds were unanimous for Franchon. So pretty much it was, seen by each judge in a different way in every round, with the exception of 4 rounds. Sometimes, obviously when we watch on TV, we get slowed down, we get, we get different angles. So it is a little bit easier to sometimes score from TV. But you and I, obviously, we're regulars at boxing events. And sometimes, we see things differently when we're in the actual arena. Depending on where you're at in the arena, you could see things slightly differently and you might score things differently. Case in point, looking at the action from the Yusuf Kamari fight that we were both at, we could see that there was clearly going to be some differential in the way that fight was going to be judged, because of the way you could see action taking place on one side of the arena but didn't see the same on the other side of the arena. But yeah, good performance by Savannah. Obviously, lots of histrionics before the fight. Amazing performances by Franchon Cruz on the mic. I think she's got a wonderful voice. I'm being seriously honest. I think she's got a voice that could go somewhere. I'd like to hear some more stuff from her. And I'm sure she probably has got some more stuff somewhere. But well done to her for that. I also have to respect her, because at the end of the fight, she was very magnanimous in the way she took the defeat. She took pictures with Savannah. She was very cordial about it. And obviously, you made your own video about why Clarissa Shields is never going to be the face of boxing, or isn't as popular as other fighters. It all basically boils down to the way you conduct yourself in and out of the ring. And you were absolutely right in what you said. If you're not a member, you won't be able to see that video that Base put up. But it basically breaks down, what Clarissa does outside of the ring sometimes lets her down badly. And you could see that on the Saturday night. So we move on very quickly. The next fight that we're going to review is on the same bill. And again, it's a world title fight, and it includes Natasha Jonas going down the weight to attempt to take a vacant title in a fight with Wyatt. I can't remember the young lady's name.
Candy Wyatt.
Thank you very much. A little bit of action here. So it's the IBF welterweight title that was up for grabs. And effectively, I found this a little bit of a strange fight, because Natasha seemed to box on the back foot for most of the fight. I actually think that didn't work for her too well. But when she put her punches together, as you can see her doing here, she was able to catch Candy Wyatt with some very good shots. She didn't sustain too much of a punching for herself, because she was just too slick in terms of her defense against Candy Wyatt. Wyatt did march forward consistently through the fight, but really wasn't able to connect and do any damage to Natasha, who was able to box well on the back foot. But I kind of felt like she didn't need to box on the back foot, because if she had pressed the action from the start, she probably would have got an earlier stoppage. But good performance by Natasha. Obviously, now she's got her additional belts to add to, or additional belt, I should say, to add to her collection, which is growing. Well done to her. Be very interesting to see where she goes next, whether she wants to take more straps at that weight, or whether she starts to look at bigger fights in higher divisions. What's your take on it?
You know what? Real quick one, to be totally honest. Look, congrats to Tash, but the fight was never in doubt. I predicted the KO. I think on my basis picks, I think I said round 8. On my I'm in this predictions league at the moment, and I think on that I put round 7, so I was a round out on that. But I knew Tash #1 was #1, a level above Candy White. Quicker, uh, puts her punches together better. Candy's a bit crude, comes forward in straight lines, and because she doesn't like inch forward or walk forward, she basically sort of bounces on her toes. Every time she sort of springs off, there's no chance for her to be able to angle off to the side or to move her head. So she's literally bouncing into the range of shots. And it's not something that she was able to to correct throughout the fight, adjust, make allowances for, because she's essentially just not good enough at that level. She's definitely what you would in the female divisions, even though there's not really quote unquote gatekeepers, she would definitely be a gatekeeper to the, maybe not even the elite fighters, but just to the world ones. Like if you get past her, you're ready for that next step. It won't guarantee that you'll win a title, but at least it means that you'll be competitive. That's literally for me what her role is moving forward. And I don't even say that sort of in a disrespectful way, but she's had 4 cracks at the championship now. Lost all 4, I think, of the I think she's lost 3 out of the 4 by way of stoppage. So yeah, if she wants to carry on, there's a place for her. Like, she'd definitely be a good test for the up and coming girls around 140, 147. But even maybe possibly 154. But that might be risking a bit of a health if she goes up that high. But yeah, it was a gimme fight for Tash. To me, there was never any doubt. Now, for her to have a next fight, it's got to be meaningful. In her at her age, she doesn't get a lot of gimmies anymore. It's got to be big fight, big fight, big payday, big payday. That's what she's in it for. So it can only be unifications now, or go down another weight class and try and fight one of the cash cows at maybe 140 and see where she gets to there. But congrats to her.
Cool, nice one. All right, moving on swiftly. We'll move into a very quick viewing of the highlights from the Ben Whitaker fight, because it would be remiss of us not to at least mention him very quickly. He was very entertaining in the first rounds, with his playing around and his movement, his footwork, his hand speed. It's phenomenal. I like to say, look, he doesn't obviously carry huge power, in a weight division where you've got the likes of Artur Beterbiev, Callum Smith, guys who can really bang. It would be very remiss of me to try to say, he's anywhere close to that. But he's an entertaining fighter, and he entertained the crowd early on. But I think they got a little bit wary that, towards the end, he wasn't able to put his man away until the very last round. And I think, to be honest, I think the referee stopped that a little bit premature. The same opponent was stopped by Carol Itoma.
Yeah.
In 8 rounds. So, I was expecting Ben to maybe put him away a bit early, just to show that, what you can do, I can do better. But he wasn't able to do that. He did it in exactly the same time as Itama. And probably, as I said, I think the opponent could have seen the last bell. But the hand speed, I can't say there's anyone in a light heavyweight division who's got hand speed like Ben Whitaker. So for me, I'm excited. I'll wait for the power to come. I'll wait for it. But I personally, I'm excited about him. I just don't want to see him go too slow. I don't want him to go too fast in terms of progression, but I don't want him to be hitting, taxi drivers for the next year. I want to see some decent tests. I want to see him start picking up some local straps, and within a year or two to be knocking on the door of world titles. So that's my say on that. Did you want to mention anything? Or
Well, look, very briefly, Ben took him on at 3-0. Carol Latama took him on at 9-0. So for them to be stopping him at the same time, it shows, I guess, more of the class of Ben at that particular stage, because obviously he did it, 5 fights less than what Carol did. But the stoppage itself, I kind of understand it, because I did see the guy's eyes sort of go a bit hazy in there at that particular moment, and he had been taking damage for some rounds afterwards. But it was definitely an A-side stoppage. It didn't need to happen. Like, he definitely could have allowed him. I don't think Ben would have had the best. I don't think he's got the best finishing instincts outside of a one-punch hitter that would, really sort of get someone out of there if they were able to sort of tuck up and maybe just get through a salvo. So Belushi, there was a chance he probably could have survived until the end, but at that point you don't want to necessarily take the risk. It makes sense, and ultimately it just goes down as another KO on the box rec. So when you put him into the next fight, that's still something you can market him on. Oh, KO machine, 75% KO ratio thus far. And then you just kind of you make it about the KOs and the showboating, and not just the showboating. Because I feel like they wouldn't have accepted the showboating in that one if he didn't get the guy out of there. If he went the distance with him, people would have been like, "Well, you're showboating against a journeyman and you can't finish him. Like, you're washed, innit?" But the fact that the stoppage is there, you can still run with the narrative. Yeah, he might be, showing off, but he can get people out of there as and when he's ready to, and he proved that, and that's probably that's what they'd be saying. So yeah, outside of that, I'm not really gonna give too much praise or critique on it. It was what it was, pretty much similar to the last fight. I'm happy to see the journey continue and see what happens with his next fight. How big of a step up it might be, or will it be around the same level?
Cool. Right, so we move over to Matchroom card, which was headlined by Dalton Smith fighting Sam Maxwell. Wow, this fight has one of the most devastating knockouts I have seen all year. I mean, we often talk or use the terminology, he folded a man. But this fight was actually a proper folding. I do, of course, have the highlight reel of the knockout, but a great performance by Dalton Smith. Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you too much about the rest of the fight because I was actually watching the Boxer show while this was going on. I just hope somebody somewhere has a word about this having fights on at the same time. It's terrible. It's terrible. It's an absolute nightmare when you've got two cards on at the same time and you want to have a look at both. So, but yeah, well done to Dalton Smith. Fantastic KO. I'm going to leave it there. What have you got to say?
Okay, you should have told me you didn't see that fight. Look, if I'm totally honest, they had the two main events, and that main event finished literally about 3 minutes before the main event of the Sky Sports and Boxer card started. There was no clash, not in terms of that. Now, look, if you want to say there was clashes within the undercard, that just comes down to preference. But it's the main event what most people are tuning in to watch realistically. And if I'm gonna be honest, the chief support, we're gonna call it, because it definitely wasn't a co-main, but the chief support on the zone card was actually more emphatic than what happened with obviously Ben Whitaker. Now, that's a personal preference to you wanting to watch him, but Pat McCormack dealt with his opponent in a much better fashion than Ben Whitaker did throughout the fight. And on the actual, with the exception of Callum Simpson and Boris Crichton, I haven't seen Shelley and Jeffers, so I can't particularly comment on that. But there was quite a few competitive fights on the DAZN card. There was an all English title card which I think started it. I don't remember the name of the two guys off the top of my head, so I'll apologize to them because we weren't going to talk about them to begin with anyway. But that was a really good fight. Janae Boston against I think is it Paul Stephen Amos or Paul Amos. I need to double check that. The guy who looks like a mini Joshua Bawatsi. If you look at him, his face, his beard, he looks just like Bawatsi but with dreads. That was a little competitive card as well, a little competitive bout. So yeah, and there was some decent action on both of them, but the main events didn't clash, they didn't overlap, so you got to watch both of those if you really wanted to. So to me, that was pretty much it was good work. Now, in terms of if we're looking at the actual fight from an aesthetic,
the Paris Olympics is on.
Yeah, Tony's always doing that to me, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, so if you look at the actual fight in itself, like the actual aesthetics of the fight, you had Sam Maxwell basically trying to keep it long and keep it rangy, sort of looking to throw that backhand. He didn't do much in terms of jabbing and setting up the backhand. He was trying to walk Dalton Smith onto it quite often. But with regards to Dalton Smith, like in this fight, he was extremely switched on pretty much from the start of the fight. It was keeping range pretty well. He was actually landing his backhand quite a lot effectively, especially in the first couple of rounds. But also Sam Maxwell did quite well at blocking hooks. He did quite well at blocking hooks and also sort of parrying the jab, not getting caught with the jab too tough. But those straight backhands were causing him some issues. There was one head clash which caused a cut over Dalton Smith's right eye, and that happened in the third round, which, funny enough, spurred Dalton Smith into action. Almost as if he thought, oh, if it gets stopped now, I might get stopped on cuts. But because it was he probably didn't realize it was due to the head clash. So because of that, if it got stopped, he would have won anyway, because he had won at least 2 of those first 3 rounds, and he won the 4th. So he was pretty much in control, but he had to stay switched on because he did get hit. He got hit flush on 2 occasions with the straight right from Sam Maxwell, and it definitely gave him a moment of pause in both of those. But Maxwell throughout the fight looked extremely wide-eyed and tentative, like he didn't want to. It's almost like he didn't want to overcommit, because there was times when he was shooting out the jab, pouring with it, he was getting caught over the top of it by Dalton Smith, and he realized, okay, I need to sharpen this one up. I can't just let it out there loose, because I'm actually getting timed and getting countered. So there were some good exchanges around about sort of the 5th round, the 5th and the 6th, but by the time it got to the 7th, yeah, we saw what happened. Obviously, Sam Maxwell got caught previously with a short right hook, which sort of buckled him, had him sort of on the rope, sort of tucking up, surviving. He managed to get through that, which was lucky for him. He sort of rode that storm out, then sort of came back with some of his own work, to be fair to him. So he did stick it out, gritted his teeth and got through it. But then when it came to that, that 7th round, ultimately it was the same thing. He got fainted with the front hand to come behind with the the back to the side of the head, to the temple, folded him over, and that was pretty much it from there. There was not a lot more that he could do. And yeah, the right person won emphatically, and now Dalton Smith, as I said in my preview, he's on that ascendancy. It will be interesting to see what Sam does moving forward. But he's a good guy, so I hope that he can bounce back from this. And now that Dalton's won that British outright, maybe he can sort of, if he wants to go back down to that level, try and win the British, and then try and sort of clean out the domestic scene once Dalton Smith's basically gone up. That's an idea. If he's made enough money and wants to pack it in, that's also something that we celebrate. So yeah, commiserations to Maxwell. Well done to Dalton Smith. And yeah, onwards and upwards, and let the rebuild begin, if that's what we're going to have.
Cool. I know nothing about the shenanigans with Sonny Edwards, so I'm going to steer clear of that question, Iron Man. So we're going to move on, because we have got to finish off before our guest comes on. How are we doing for time, Base? You're on mute. Your sound's gone.
No, I'm here. I was doing something. Yeah, no, we should be okay. We should have about 20 minutes or so. So should be all
Okay,
right.
no problem. Okay, cool. So on the a very quick viewing of very good performance from Pat McCormack against Dixon. Pat, another good, solid professional. He's doing really well. And that was a cracker of a shot from Pat McCormack. Do you want to say anything about that fight?
Nope, we're on my schedule.
Cool. All right. So that leads us to our last fight to review, which is the big fight coming from America on Top Rank, from Toledo, the hometown of Jared, the real big baby Anderson, who was fighting Prince Charles Martin. Is he still officially Prince Charles Martin?
I don't know, but
I think
let's just keep it because.
Yeah, I haven't heard the Prince for a little while, so yeah, it was Prince Charles Martin was a standing opponent because his original Anderson's original opponent was unable to get his visa sorted, which was Jan Kozabutsky. As you can see, Charles Martin not in the worst of shape. He came in lighter than he did for his previous fight. He came in decent shape, but I would say he's still not a great boxer. And effectively was dominated most of the time in this fight by a more mobile, more nimble Jared Anderson. Charles Martin did have some level of success, most notably at the tail end of round 10, just before the bell. It looked like he had Jared Anderson really hurt. And there were points in the middle of certain other rounds where Charles Martin did catch Jared Anderson with some very good shots. As you can see from most of the video content that's being uploaded, that you can see Jared Anderson is pretty much on the front foot most of the fight. He has a very high punch output. I believe his punch rate is one of the highest in the heavyweight division, somewhere around 65 to 70 punches per round. And, he's also a very good switch hitter. So you can see him right now in the southpaw, using the southpaw jab, but he's actually an orthodox fighter, able to operate in both stances. And he was able to do that with good effect. There he is in the orthodox. He was able to do that very effectively against Charles Martin all night long. The problem I see with Charles Martin that I picked up very early is he has absolutely the worst footwork. His footwork is very plodding-like. And if you catch him, he basically falls backward on himself. Look at the crossover with the feet there. See how those feet cross? A good fighter does not do that. Look, there we go. The feet crossing because he got no balance. If you get hit, the back foot should effectively allow you to take the shot and be stood in an upright position. But because his footwork isn't planted correctly and he never has good footwork, he's when he's being caught, he always ends up falling backwards and looking bad. His arms flail and his feet end up looking in a very bad way, going backwards. And as a fighter who was consistently on the back foot against the onward going Jared Anderson, he's not the greatest of counter puncher. Although he did, as I said, have success throughout the fight with some attacks. He would be far better suited if he was instructed to fight more on the front foot and to try and use his advantages of size to try to, and it's not like he's a bigger fighter than Jared, because Jared's a big guy, but he's a mature fighter in that he's he's older. He's been around the block a few more times than Jared Anderson, and you'd think that a guy of his experience would try to overpower the younger fighter. And at no point in the fight, as I said, until the last round, does he explode sufficiently to be able to cause Jared Anderson problems. Now, as far as the scoring of the fight is concerned, I gave Jared pretty much most of the rounds, with the exception about 2 or 3. A couple of the rounds were, as I call them, swing rounds. But essentially, most of this fight was dominated by Jared Anderson. And he goes on to, look for better fights and bigger fights now in the heavyweight division. His name is now becoming quite relevant. Obviously, he's been a lot on undercards, and now, he headlines his own show in Toledo. So it'll be interesting where he goes next. Will they get a visa for Kosabuski? Because that I believe would still be a very good fight. If not, then what other names will they bring into the hat? Obviously, a lot of contention was made over someone's defending of Jared Anderson on Monday Night Smoke. We won't go into that, but needless to say, I actually do think the kid is very good. I do believe he's very good. Whether or not I believe he is good enough to beat every British fighter out there, with the exception of Tyson Fury, I don't think he's that guy yet. And as such, I'm going to leave it there. What do you say, my man?
So, the thing is, I still rate him quite highly. One, and I won't even say it's like a bad night, because obviously you say, one bad night at the office doesn't define. But what I will say is, when people obviously comparing this fight to the Joshua fight, I mean, look, at the end of the day, it looks as if Charles Martin in this day and age is taking it a bit more seriously than he was back then. But outside of that, number one, he's always going to be able to punch. With everyone he's been in the ring with the exception of Anthony Joshua, he's hit them and hurt them. He's got 20, I think he's got 25, 26 KOs on the record from 29 fights or 30 fights, something like that. So he's got a high KO percentage. He's not feather-fisted. And when you look at, obviously, Jared Anderson and Anthony Joshua, the difference between the two, Anthony Joshua had a longer reach than Charles Martin and was an inch taller. So he had the height and the reach advantage. Jared Anderson was an inch shorter and had a shorter reach. So the styles, the domestic and the style matchups themselves weren't in his favor in that sense. He's never really had to box like the shorter guy or the smaller guy, having to find his openings to get in on the inside. Whereas in this particular fight, he's had to do that, and he's had to do it against the southpaw. So so all of that, I give him, some credit for that. He did well when he switched into southpaw for some reason, but you can tell that the one issue that he had when he was moving into southpaw is that he was still basically rolling in the exact same direction. And at that point, because he's rolling in that direction, when you get hit, your balance is less sturdy, because you're rolling into your lead leg instead of into your back leg where your power is supported. So I feel like he got lucky with a lot of those, sort of rolling out like that. But against those longer, taller, rangier guys, that's going to get him into trouble more than it's going to save him, especially as he goes up the levels. But it looks like that's one of those things where until he actually really gets hit, hurt, and knocked out by it or knocked down, he's going to carry on doing it because it works for him. Most people do what works for them until it doesn't. But athleticism definitely kept him in this fight. Punch power and activity were definitely on his side. Charles Martin, he pretty much looked like he blew a fuse from the 5th round onwards and was literally just looking for one-shot counters after that, backing up against the ropes, like sort of just circling the ring, trying to get his breath in. But he did what he needed to do. He tested the young man. Jared Anderson needs to work on cutting off the ring rather than just following his opponent around, regardless of what stance he puts himself into. Again, it's not something he's really had to do in previous fights, so it's something that he's going to have to learn. And there was times in there when, I'm not going to say that Charles Martin was going to, get taken out, but he definitely could have stepped on the pressure. You could see that Martin was basically there gasping for air, trying to suck in as much oxygen as possible. Got to press him at those moments. Those are the times you got to let your hands go. Those are the times where you got to feint him on the inside. And that's all stuff that obviously Jared Anderson needs to learn, but he'll gain that with experience. At the age of 23, he's definitely got a lot going on, I guess, internally. So there's some stuff there that he maybe needs to work on. He could maybe also put it down to the hometown jitters, as a lot of people say. We've seen many of people go to their hometown and get beat or look less than stellar. And, for someone that still won pretty much at a minimum 7 of the 10 rounds convincingly, it wasn't the worst. It wasn't the worst of nights, but hopefully that will do him good. He can go sort of back to the drawing board, tighten up on the things he needs to tighten up on, and we can see where we'll go from there. But I can't really see too much issues in his future. I feel like he's got enough about him to come through this, get better, and show it in the very next fight. So yeah, all good to me. Like, yeah, it wasn't the standout that a lot of people thought it would be, but everyone needs these fights, and it's better he has them now when he's still sort of on the ascendancy and having to work on it, than when he's at that pinnacle and there's nowhere else for him to go. At least now he's got decent people around him that he can, or decent level opponents around him that he can come back with and keep building with. And on a side note, I don't know how true this is, but I think I put this out there and then someone else ran with it. So I don't know, what the actual truth is, but I did say I heard I had a speculation that potentially Top Rank maybe thought that Zan Kosobutsky might have been a bit too much for him, being sort of that short and nimble southpaw guy. Obviously 19 wins, 18 KOs, and so they maybe delayed putting in the paperwork for the visa, and that's probably what occurred. Because realistically, we heard about the fight about 8-9 weeks ago. I don't think it takes 9 weeks for a visa to be applied for. So I guess it's just about when they put in the application. So, but yeah, it's funny because it's not like he went into that much more of an easier opponent. Like, this opponent stylistically was a lot different. Again, like taller, rangier. Don't know about if he's got a harder punch than Kosobutsky. That I can't comment, but he's definitely just more, sort of more wily and more. Yeah, there was just a lot more things for Jared to have to overcome with this fight than the other one, as he would have been the bigger guy against Kosobutsky. But onwards and upwards. Let's see how he rebounds. That's the most important thing.
Cool. Okay, so a couple of comments. I'm going to race through these very quickly. Iron Man believes that Fabio Wardley beats Jared. Bruce Kai, we have already discussed the Ben Whitaker fight, and we've shown content of that, I'm afraid. Iron Man also said he's also very flat-footed. Yeah, I mean, look, today's heavyweights are all flat-footed. Who gets up on their toes anymore? We haven't seen that since Lennox Lewis. Pretty much Lewis, Evander Holyfield, obviously Larry Holmes and Ali back in the day, but most of today's heavyweights are pretty flat-footed. Anderson don't want no smoke from what I've seen. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think it's that he doesn't want smoke, but he's a very astute defensive fighter, and he uses a particular technique which some might say is one that doesn't entice a toe-to-toe battle, but neither did Floyd. You never see Floyd getting in the trenches in a toe-to-toe battle with anybody. So, look, this is a fight game. And if you can do something, do your work, hurt people, and don't get hurt at the same time, it's going to serve you a lot better down the long run. Trust me, you don't want to get hit by heavyweight punches. He's flat-footed, no footwork, just a heavy bag fighter. I don't think that is the case at all. I think he's got a lot of good nuance to his game, which will get him far. So it's just a matter of how his trajectory runs and seeing who he's going to come up against in his career. But he's a little bit away from a world title. As I said, I would argue that he's not really ready for all the British fighters yet. But not to say that at some point in time he might be the man of the division. If you're getting hurt by Charles the God Martin, how are you going to do with the big boys? Very good point. Youth and athleticism made a big difference in the fight. Jared had a very valuable 10 rounds there. Charles was definitely physically bigger than the still physically maturing big baby Jared. Charles Martin can punch. Fury has been dropped in his career earlier by lesser fighters on multiple occasions. Charles Martin like a low-level gatekeeper these days. Who are you talking about? Charles Martin is terrible. Nowhere near world level. Got his belt because of a pullout. That's his his name to fame. Charles Martin, that same guy, Kimbo Slive, gave the uppercut in 2005. But it just generally looks like some of you guys are giving it to Charles Martin and don't feel that his quality is anywhere near that which we could compare a Jared Anderson to any of the other guys. Iron Man Tyson gets on his toes. AJ gets on his toes. Come on. Oh yeah, sorry, yeah. Tyson Fury does get on his toes. AJ, nah. He's a flat-footed boxer, my friend. The Roy Jones things, again, stuff supplemental to the actual boxing. I ain't going to get involved with that because it's just not worth it. I stick to the boxing. Jared versus Fisher, who you got? Nah, Johnny Fisher ain't ready for that smoke. No freaking way. So in that one, I definitely have Jared. But, there's loads of other guys out there that could cause him. Fabio potentially could be a decent fight for him. David Adelaide, Daniel Dubois, Chisora, Dillian White, not to mention Joe Joyce. So, yeah, anyone who thinks that Jared Anderson is taking care of all of that work handily might need to eat a bit of humble pie one day. Tony, who you got? Bo versus Fury. Bo. I don't understand that one. I'm afraid, Iron Man. So, Base has disappeared for a short period. I shall continue seeing what else we've got. People are bought into Jared because he's been heavily advertised by Top Rank. Really, he's average. No, I don't believe he's average. In the same way that we can hype our UK fighters up, like Joe Joyce up until he ran into Zhile Zhang. Look, he's done well so far. I just don't think we should be putting him in elite level circles as yet. But certainly in the contenders, I think he's deserving of his accolades. He's done really well. What is it? 14 KOs out of 15 fights. He's a very heavy-handed. Look, if he was under Eddie in the UK and not under Bob at Top Rank, he'd probably be at the same point in his development, because you don't, as I said, want to rush these guys until they've actually done their due process. They have rounds to gain. They got to learn to maturate and get rounds in. They need to see different styles. They need to feel different types of fighters, and then you can put them in with the big hitters and see how they get on against elite. So I'm pretty au fait with where Jared Anderson is right now. As I said, he's at least a year away from any big titles, or even any elite fighters. It's just a matter of time to see how he maturates and how he gets on against some of the other contenders in the division.
Yeah, I hear that. Yeah, sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just still just trying to find out an ETA real quick. The last thing I heard, he was actually in the middle of some medicals. Obviously he's fighting next weekend, so I'm just trying to find out if they've been done and how much longer. So bear with me on that. Tony, keep going. Keep responding to the comments.
So Iron Man asked me a question: who have I got between Bo versus Fury? And Hot Pies, you think he's talking about Riddick Bowe? Now, Riddick Bowe is a bad mofo. 3 fights against Evander Holyfield. Tyson Fury ain't living with those guys. Sorry. Tyson Fury is a phenom of a boxer. Huge, great feet, good hands, reasonable power. I wouldn't say outstanding power, but Riddick Bowe, Holyfield, Tyson, Lennox Lewis, them guys were cut from a different cloth. Me personally, I don't see Tyson Fury lasting with Riddick Bowe. And this is you're talking about the Riddick Bowe that dealt with one of my favorites in Evander Holyfield twice in amazing fashion. And you see how strong a fighter he is, that he fought through adversity in 2 fights, against one of the greatest combination punchers in the heavyweight division. So for me, it's Riddick Bowe all day. Fight Fan TV just responding to Iron Man's comment about Fury going down early in his career. He didn't only just get knocked down by Steve Cunningham, he also got dropped by Nevin Pashtik. Plus Derek Chisora in the first fight, and John McDermott was hurting him big time. Check the resume. Did I see the Makhmudov fight? Yeah, against the African fella whose name I can't, Ajit Giori.
Rafael Akpejiori.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you, sir. Makhmudov dealt with him handily. Looked very good in his performance. But again, he's another heavyweight that is coming through right now. We're not going to put him up at the elite level. We're going to take careful steps with him to keep giving him the right looks and see how he gets on. Obviously, Bob has been very careful about his heavyweights. That's Bob Arum, top rank. Makhmudov being a top rank fighter, he's been slowly moved along. I'm not sure. I know he's Russian and he fights out of Canada. I'm not sure if he's in the same camp as BaseDaKID.
Yeah, he's with Mark Ramsey.
Okay, I thought there was a connection there. So he's got good people around him. Mark Ramsey, very good trainer, very good resume. So I would expect Makhmudov to be, getting higher accolades in the near future. So let's wait and see. Frank Bruno versus AJ. Frank Bruno versus AJ. That's a very interesting one, actually. Bruno Bruno what he lacked in footwork, he made up for it with power from the waist upwards. Very, very hard hitter. AJ probably has a slightly better footwork. In fact, he does have better footwork. But Frank is a unit, man. I mean, the Frank that fought Lennox Lewis, I think, gives AJ big problems. Iron Man Sex, Makhmudov versus Hrgovic is a go. I don't think Makhmudov is ready for that yet. It'd be interesting to see where Hrgovic pops up next on the heavyweight radar. He's obviously been inactive for a little while now. Obviously, based on his last performance, the win against Zhang, he's not done anything since. But obviously, Zhang has elevated himself. Hrgovic is currently sitting pretty as a mandatory, so probably won't fight anybody until he gets his world title shot. But that doesn't do him any good. So
Bruno has no grit, and Oliver McCall would have sparked AJ. I mean, I don't know if I can disagree with that, to be honest. I mean, talk about iron chin. That's definitely Oliver McCall.
So, next one, Tony, who have you got? Zhang versus or Joyce in the rematch? Listen, I saw Zhang yesterday post up that he ain't doing the media friendly thing. He's in the lab working hard, and it's very interesting because I've been watching lots of training footage from Errol Spence and Terence Crawford. Those guys are putting in some heavy work. And Zhang yesterday posted his, and I'm like, woo, he could be even better than the last time. So,
what are you saying? It's dangerous for Joyce, yeah?
Yeah. I mean, my heart wants Joyce to win. Local fighter, Southwest Banstead, literally just up the road from where I am now. I would love Joyce to rebound. Local boy. I think the fact that he goes back into the rematch without having any kind of tune up or anything else in between, I admire that in him. Just the same way I admire Lee Wood going straight back in and challenging Lara to try and regain his titles. I do the same with Joe Joyce, and I hope he wins. However, I thought Joyce was going to be a problem before the first fight. I think he's going to be an even bigger problem in the second fight. All I can say is Joe Joyce and his team better be coming up with some super strategy. He best be on the money from the get-go, because Zhile Zhang is in the lab cooking up a treat. He is what's my word? Marinating nicely.
He's not a chicken leg, bro.
Now that's the thing, man. If you're in the lab and you're adding the sauce, yeah, you're marinating, bruv. Let's see what comes from all his hard work.
Right.
So yeah, that fight is at the Oval at Wembley, Hot Pies. So yes, I also might take a wander across there, because yeah, I can. I know it's a problem for Base because you don't like the location of Wembley, but me being a football fan and my team going to Wembley several times, and I lived in Wembley, it's a journey I'm well accustomed to. Not to say that your team doesn't go to Wembley, but Zhang had Joyce on noodles, no pun. Yeah, marinating, simmering. Nice one, G-Chain.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. So at the moment, I'm waiting on a response. I'm not sure what the deal is. Like I said, I know that Nita was doing some medicals a little while ago. I don't know if they're still going on. We're in a bit of a tricky time zone because they're on the West Coast. So they're 8 hours behind us. So there's no telling sort of what the situation is at this precise moment. What I'm going to do, obviously, we're going to keep the stream up for another sort of 5 minutes or so. If I don't get a response by then, what we might have to do is pull this one down, finish this one, and then we may have to do a separate stream just for the interview. So if that's the case, what we will do, if you anyone right now before the interview starts, if you any questions you've got, put in the chat. If we have to close this one down, we'll do a separate one and we'll ask every single question that's put in there as well as conducting the interview. So yeah, if you want to ask anything, put it in the chat. Otherwise, Tony, just keep him entertained for a couple more minutes so I can see if I can see what's going on here.
So I'm going to mention a couple of undercard fights from the Toledo card. Obviously, we talked about the Makhmudov fight. There was a bit of a shocker in another undercard fight, which was the hot prospect Jahai Tucker, 10-0, was going in against Nicholas Flaz.
Mash up my accumulator.
Yeah. So it was an 8-rounder in the super welterweight division. And unfortunately for Base, and not expected by myself, Jahai Tucker ended losing a majority decision. So good performance from Niklaus. Jahai, obviously, he needs to rebuild. I think he could probably rerun that fight and win it if he wanted to, because I do feel that he was not quite his usual flamboyant self. Elsewhere on the undercard, a very good performance from another hot prospect that I always tell you about, Abdullah Mason, 8-0 going into this fight, fighting the 20-4 Alex de Oliveira. And Abdullah made light work of Oliveira, winning by second round stoppage. That's in the lightweight division. So again, another one of my boxers that I often mention when he's on undercards, because I do feel that he is someone that might make waves in the future. Other than that, can't think of any other fights on that card that were worthy of mention. We've got some good fights coming up this weekend.
So wait, didn't you watch Delonte Johnson?
I didn't know. Tell us about it.
I didn't watch the whole fight. I saw pieces of it, but I thought that was your card to watch.
Not all of it.
All right. Well, from what I saw, the bits and pieces I saw, he's improving fight by fight, and I feel as if Tiger Johnson, he's the goods in the pro game. He was okay as an amateur, but I think in the pros, that's gonna suit him better. He's transitioning quite nicely. So,
Cool.
They're saying let's talk about Spence and Crawford before the guests. But you know what? We don't normally, but why not? You got a few minutes.
Absolutely.
Have a chat. So you've got Iron Man saying Spence ain't ready. Do you want to counter that?
Spence is super ready, my guy. Let me tell you something. Yeah. What you have to realize is he trains it. I mean, this is actually a very good point, and one which needs a great deal of attention to be considered. Look at Derek James's camp right now. Jamal, Errol Spence, Ryan Garcia, Anthony Joshua.
He doesn't have Jamal. Ronnie Shields has Jamal.
Oh, okay, my bad. But boy, that camp, hellfire, man. I mean, as I said, I am watching all the daily stuff. Those guys are posting daily. They are putting in some serious work. I mean, I'm pretty certain both guys are already on weight. They're tuning up nicely. The heavy sparring is taking place. So where we're at now, 3 weeks away from the fight, you know, they would be going through some heavy sparring. They'll be doing lots of rounds right about now. They'll be perfecting their craft against, you know, fighters who look or box similar to the opponent, working on angles, working on speed and timing. Both fighters right now physically look bang on. You know, I can't help but say, you know, I do think this is gonna be an all-time classic. You know, we've heard the talk, you know, a week or so ago, both fighters saying that, you know, this is their legacy fight. This is a fight that they expect that, you know, nobody's taking a back foot. These are guys that when they get hurt, they come back, you know, with fire and venom. You know, look, this past week I've been watching old fights to see, you know, what chinks in the armor these guys have. You know, Errol Spence, I watched the whole fight against Kell Brook, you know, and you look at that fight, Kell Brook started that fight great, you know, and Errol Spence just took his time. You know, he was young, but he took his time and he worked out Kell Brook. And when he started to work the body and get the footwork and the timing going against Kell Brook, it was just a thing of beauty. So not under no circumstances can anyone tell me that this is a one-sided fight, because Errol Spence is an absolute surgeon in the ring. You know, he took apart Dennis Ugas most recently. You know, again, you know, Ugas was trying his best. You know, obviously, you know, Spence paid the price for not signing on the dotted line to fight Manny Pacquiao, allowed Ugas to take away Pacquiao's strap, and therefore he put himself in line for that unification fight with Errol Spence. But Errol, you know, there was lots of questions about him. Obviously, coming back from the car crash, you know, he's answered every question. There's nothing in any fight where you can go, you know, look, he's got soft spot here. I've got plenty of footage of him being hurt to the body, by the way. You know, a lot of people are talking like, you know, look, Spence can be hurt to the body, but he gets hurt, but he comes back. He comes back harder, faster, you know, and he's undoubtedly on top of his game right now. But my money is still on Crawford.
Let me ask you a question, Tony. How many punches has Spence faced?
How many punches?
Yeah.
Well, bearing in mind that he's only campaigned in one weight division, what would you call a puncher? I mean,
as in someone with like
a decent KO record.
Not even so much a decent KO record, because that could be manufactured, but someone that visibly hurts opponents when they connect with them. So like someone that you could say, yeah, that punch is that's rocked him, or that's forced him to reset almost every time they get hit.
Yeah, I mean, you know, arguably we could say that Kell Brook was a puncher.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. I wouldn't put Sean Porter down as a puncher. I wouldn't put Ugas down as a puncher. You can't put Garcia. No chance. No chance. You're probably going back a bit to find real bangers that he's faced.
Okay, so we'll say, all right, so we've got Kell Brook.
Yeah.
And at the moment, that's pretty much all we can kind of really think about. Fight fans put Danny Garcia.
Danny Garcia.
Was he a puncher at 147? In your opinion? Because at 140, definitely, but did his power
Definitely,
come
yeah.
up with him?
Yeah. And to be honest, he hasn't really shown that he's got that power at 147, either before or after that.
Okay.
Danny Garcia is a bit of a, because he's just not been active enough to show, like, you know, I'm a force in this in this newer division. So yeah, I think probably not.
Okay. So we've established Kell Brook and Danny unproven at 147 realistically. Ugas isn't particularly a puncher, but he did visibly hurt Spence on numerous occasions. Spence kept pushing forward because I think it was a power he could take, but I'm concerned. The one thing I'm trying to see is like, okay, how many people has he really been in there with that's properly tested his durability as opposed to just giving him something to think about? Because one thing we do know is Terence Crawford will test his durability. Like we can assert and ascertain that Terence Crawford is in fact a puncher. Has he been hit by someone in those 10-ounce gloves with the punch power and the speed and the accuracy of Crawford? That's something that would be interesting to, you know, sort of to really think about going into this fight.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in the same way that, you know, we haven't seen him fight many, as you call it, punchers. You know, we've seen him get hit flush. You know, he's the kind of fighter that he will take a punch to give a punch. He's, you know, barely ever in a boring fight because he's always engaging. I don't think, you know, I don't think there's a reason to think that Crawford brings destructive power that causes Spence that much problems. I think he could wear him down, but I don't think he brings a one punch sort of power that will hurt Spence in the early rounds. I think what you can end up doing is wearing him down to the point that, you know, if you've got the energy and you're still pinpointing him with punches, you might get a late stoppage potentially, but I don't actually see that happening. I see this going the distance because I think they'll fight fire with fire on both sides, and I think there'll be rounds on either side, but I just think Crawford will win more of those rounds. I think there'll be swing rounds, but I don't see Crawford stopping Errol Spence because I don't think he's got issues of, you know, soft chin or, you know, punch resistance, basically.
Okay. Well, you've been wrong before, and I won't hold it against you. No, I'm pissed. I'm taking the. Well, I'm not taking the piss, but I'm taking the piss for the purpose of carrying on the conversation. I'm literally waiting for one more, for 2 more minutes. I saw a few questions, so I took a picture of the questions that was put up. If there's any others, put them in. You got another couple minutes, unless I get the bat signal flash up on my phone. I can see Danny saying that. I mean, yeah, Danny's saying that Danny took out Paulie Malignaggi at 147. A hot prize is saying Malignaggi was done, which is a fair assessment. Yeah, I don't know if that's the right measuring stick to, you know, to assess Danny Garcia's punch power or ability at the 147 ranks. So I don't know. It's interesting, and look, we can all go into it, but everyone knows what my position on this fight is. And if you don't know, I won't say here because I did promise to do another neutral corner special with Danny from Fight Fan TV. I'm gonna, he's gonna be back in his charge of Spence. I'm gonna be back in my charge of Crawford, and we're gonna just have a debate on it. I don't know if we're supposed to be getting spicy or we're supposed to be level-headed, but however it goes, I come out on top. So I'm looking forward to it. Either way, because no matter
so
what
anybody,
happens,
if
I
you don't
win.
know, Danny is repping Errol Spence because Errol Spence is of Jamaican heritage, as he made very clear when he said, in Jamaica we smoke bud. So Danny is very much supporting his countrymen. So yeah, this war of words between Base and Fight Fan TV, Danny is looking to become a war of words of epic proportions, and I will definitely be tuning into that. So guys, look out for that up and coming on the Fight Fan TV platform. If you're not already subscribed, go ahead and subscribe on that one, because the Neutral Corner, a great interview recently with Ellis Zorro. Catch some great impromptu stuff. I love some of the.
He said, "Let's get spicy." Okay, that's all I needed to see. Thank you very much. Yeah,
I love some of Danny's questions as well, because he takes the guests to some places. One of the most entertaining was the Clifton Mitchell one. If you haven't seen that, go watch that one as well. Very entertaining. And Danny does hold a note. He had a little sing song in that one, and I give him credit. Hold a note.
I see Mola here says, "I normally back fellow Jamaicans, but Bud has this one for me." You see, thing is, like, I back my Jamaicans. Like, I've got no issue with Spence, apart from obviously how long he ducked this fight, but he's taking the fight now, so I got to give him his props. But I think he had a much better chance, like, before he fought Sean Porter. I think his chances now are a lot less, a lot more limited. You put the car accident in there, the second car accident, the detached retina. Like, they're having to come back down to 147 after all this time, 16 months. There's a lot to go in there. For an aging guy that didn't live the cleanest of lives before all of that happened. I mean, these are just snippets of stuff that we're gonna get into. I'm gonna do the pros and cons of both guys. Definitely, there's Crawford's got some of his issues as well, but one thing you can say, never being unprofessional and out of shape has never been one of them.
Definitely. I mean, guys, this to me, one of the reasons I'm going to this fight is, I thought that Pacquiao versus Mayweather came way too late. Obviously, to me, Pacquiao was soiled goods. He lost his previous fights. It was a fight we had called for so long, and it just didn't happen at the right time. This one is happening at a great time. This one is happening at a great time. Thank you, Hot Pies. I'm looking forward to it. I've just literally today seen my itinerary for Las Vegas, because as you probably, if anyone who's a regular in Vegas knows, there are lots of pool parties, there are lots of celebrity things going on. So we just secured a $4,000 cabana on the Friday night, in what's going to be one of the hot parties for the Friday night before the fight. We've also secured, I believe, a similar cabana for Saturday, but that's going to be a restful one, not a party one, to take us up to fight time. But yeah, looking forward to that trip. Gonna be in Los Angeles on the week or the days prior to that, to going down to Vegas Obviously, those of you who know me know I'm an Arsenal fan. Arsenal playing Barcelona. Great news today that Arsenal secured the services of Declan Rice and Jurriën Timber. So I'm hoping that I'll see some of them in what looks like could be a quite tasty match. I know it's going to be mostly reserves of both teams in one half, but I know I hopefully will see the two teams put out there some of their better players for at least 45 minutes. And looking at Barcelona, they've made some good buys. They look like they could be, you know, I mean, they won the La Liga last year. They might be, you know, a problem. Yes,
How much did
fight
they
fan
buy
English
Declan
Danny.
Rice
I
for,
have
bro?
got Dre's. We are at Dre's on Friday night. Yes, sir. He knows. Fight fan knows. We're at Dre's on Friday night.
Tony, wait, how much did Arsenal buy Declan Rice for?
105 million all in.
Ooh,
100 million over a 2-year period with 5 million in bonuses on. Yeah,
he ain't worth that kind of money.
that's market value these days, bro.
That's not his market value.
Yeah, you know, Anthony. You know, if Declan Rice ain't worth 100 million, then what's Anthony?
Anthony weren't worth the 75 they paid for him.
Exactly.
No, but that was no, but you said market value. That was well.
But that's
over
where
market
we're at.
value.
Market value. Harry Maguire came to you 4 years ago for like 80 million, bro. Come on.
Again,
You know,
that's no, but that's over market value. Well over.
But
because you said
the
market
market
value
on
like that was,
English
you said
players
market
now.
value like that was good. Like that's
The
good
market
quality.
value on English players is elevated. We know that. You're basically paying a tax for English players, and that tax
That's
now.
right. English players are like American. You know, when you go to America, you see the price on the sticker, then you got to pay state tax and all that tax afterwards. That's what English
Exactly.
players is like. But
Exactly that.
Declan Rice ain't worth no 100 million, even with the English tax on top.
I hear what you're saying, bro, but you know what? It is what it is. You know, who's the Jack Grealish? 100 million.
He had something about him at least, but boy.
But my man ain't scored no goals, bro. 100 million, and you're playing in the front three. And
set up a lot though. The assist rate's there.
Yeah. But still,
remember, he's not a striker. He's still a midfielder. So,
well, technically, he's an attacking midfielder.
Yeah, but I hear you. I mean, look, good. You know, congrats to you anyway. Jurriën Timber to me is, I think, is a better signing for you guys out of the two.
It's a great buy. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, obviously, I can't even really speak much because Mason Mount. I'm not wearing no Mason Mount number 7 shirt. I don't care what I lose. That's an absolute disgrace.
Yeah.
All right, look, ladies and gentlemen, I haven't been able to get through. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep trying in the background. We're going to cut this stream off. Like I said, we probably won't we won't put up another live one. But if I can get it done tonight, we'll speak. We'll get it uploaded tomorrow morning if we can get the chat done later on tonight. Tony, obviously, I'll give you a heads up if I hear anything. Yeah, look, apologies. Look, these things happen, time zones, things fall off, but we will sort of get that, and that will come up on the channel. I've got all the questions that were asked, so yeah, we'll definitely speak about that. I've had a nice little bit of football chat. We'll save that for for the next time. But for the time being, Tony, let them know where they can find you.
So, guys, as you can see on the ticker tape down below, you can catch me on socials on Instagram, also on YouTube and Twitter. Pugilistboy on Twitter and YouTube. Pugilisticboy on Instagram.
And then, obviously, for myself, you got BaseDaKID Hardcore Casual. There's been no members only videos this week, but there might be. There could be one, possibly a secondary one on Friday. I haven't decided yet. And what I may do is I may release the last two to the general public. Now they're like a week or so, a week or 2 weeks old, especially the one about Eddie Hearn, because it looks like what I was saying in that video came true. And I might put up a clip of that because it looks like the old quote unquote BaseDaKID has struck again. But yeah, if you look down the ticker tapes, you'll see me B_8_S_E on Twitter, but you can just type in BaseDaKID. I come up. BaseDaKID Hardcore Casual on YouTube and on Instagram, but don't go on Instagram if you're looking for boxing content because you won't really find it on there. That's more before and after stuff. But yeah, guys, thank you very much for rocking with us. Apologies for how things have turned out, but we will get what you need. We do promise that. So for now, it's me out, Tony. Peace.
Take care, guys. Thanks for joining us. Thank you for your time. We'll catch you very soon.